It was 1 in the morning before I finally got to sleep back at the hotel. Dr. Stronton had asked me to attend a meeting at 7 a.m. the next morning. After 4 hours of sleep, I got up and got ready. On any normal day, I would have been dragging to get up and get ready for work. But not today. This was no normal day, and I was full of adrenaline just thinking about what the day might hold. Little did I know. The meeting room was down the hall from the room we'd met in yesterday. It was smaller and only a few people sat around the table. I got my coffee and sat near Dr. Stronton, who was at the head of the table trying to get everyone to have a seat. There were 14 others beside myself.
If we could get started now, we have a lot to cover.
Dr. Stronton began as everyone took a seat and fell into silence. Introductions were made around the table, and then the meeting began.
I think yesterday's robotic expedition made it clear that we need a manned mission to explore this alien spacecraft and perhaps make contact.
I don't think there's any doubt that if we send people up there to start crawling around inside that ship, we are going to get contact. Maybe more than we are prepared for.
The older gentleman with graying hair and voicing his concern was Dr. Cook.
No, we still don't know that it is piloted. It could be unmanned. It could be just like the probe, a robotic ship running on automatic.
Dr. Becker was still claiming the unmanned theory, and he was still blunt and undiplomatic.
Even an unmanned ship is likely to have some self-defense systems. I don't think anyone would launch such a large ship into an inhabited system without some type of defense systems.
Dr. Cook replied, looking Becker in the eye. Not necessarily, Doctor. Dr. Dina Carter made a good point yesterday when she said that the aliens might not recognize us as an intelligent species, and they may not see us as a threat. They may not even be aware of our ability to travel to the moon. I said, trying to be a little more diplomatic than Dr. Becker. In all the space probes that we've sent out, we never armed any of ours. It's possible that life is rare and spread very thinly throughout the universe. The aliens might not have considered it likely that their ship would encounter another intelligent species.
Ladies and gentlemen, the decision has already been made to send a manned mission to the alien ship. The question now is, who do we send, and what should their objectives be?
Dr. Stronton was trying to move the meeting along.
The answers to all our questions are up there orbiting our moon.
The room grew quiet for a moment as his words sank in.
I've asked you all here to determine what goals to set for the mission.
After a short silence, Dr. Becker spoke up first.
To determine if there are in fact any aliens on board, and then to make contact with them if they are. If not, then to determine how the ship is controlled and to acquire it if possible.
That caused an eruption of chaos as everyone voiced their own concerns over Dr. Becker's bold statement. But Dr. Stronton quickly brought the room back to order and asked Dr. Carter what she thought.
I agree that we must first determine if there is an alien intelligence aboard the ship. Then our next step should be to begin a dialogue and establish communications with it. But to interfere with the function of the ship, let alone steal it, could result in a hostile reprisal.
Dr. Carter was obviously uncomfortable with Dr. Becker's suggestion. Dr. Stronton turned to me.
And what are your thoughts, Dr. Hauptmann?
I agree with Dr. Carter. Interfering with the ship or trying to commandeer it could be catastrophic. I glanced over at Dr. Carter.
Who would be qualified to identify an alien life form and to interpret their language? Who would be necessary for that part of the mission?
Dr. Stronton asked, still looking at me. Someone familiar with linguistics and mathematics, and if the ship is robotically controlled, then someone familiar with computer programming. I replied without hesitation. Dr. Stronton was still looking at me when it dawned on me what he was thinking. Whoa, I don't think I'm qualified. I'm not an astronaut. I don't have any training for this type of mission.
No one has been trained for this type of mission, Dr. Hauptmann. It's a unique situation, and I believe you would be invaluable in interpreting an alien language. I hope that you will give the matter serious thought. I'm counting on your help.
Dr. Stronton smiled at my discomfort.
And I'm also hoping Dr. Carter will volunteer as well.
He looked over at Dr. Carter.
As you said, the aliens could be almost unrecognizable by our standards. I believe your skills, Dr. Hauptmann, Dr. Carter, will be invaluable on this mission.
Dr. Stronton continued.
Dr. Tanakai, your knowledge in advanced materials science will also be needed, as will your knowledge in computers, Dr. Becker.
Dr. Stronton paused after looking at each of the scientists.
There will also be 2 Marines on this mission to ensure your safety, and Commander Christopher Douglas will be your pilot aboard the Space Shuttle Atlantis. We have brought the shuttle out of retirement, and it is being modified and readied now. Has anyone thought about all the dust and rock the alien mining station on the moon's surface is throwing out into space? According to our best estimates, it is throwing out over 100,000 tons of material each day. Since the moon's gravity is so low, virtually none of that material is falling back to the moon's surface. It is all going out into space, and over 1/3 of it will be caught by Earth's gravity. It will rain down on Earth beginning in about 6 weeks. Within 6 months, all of Earth's satellites will be wiped out. A huge cloud of dust and debris will encircle the Earth.
Dr. Stronton paused to let the information sink in.
At first, it will just be a spectacular meteor shower. Most of the ejected matter is small rocks and dust. These will burn up in Earth's atmosphere, but some of the larger rocks it's spitting out are the size of a Greyhound bus. None of the meteors are large enough to threaten life on Earth, but if they strike metropolitan areas on Earth, they will cause tremendous damage. And we have no idea how long the aliens plan to continue their mining of Earth's moon.
We have to assume it's a permanent mining operation, I said half out loud and half to myself. It would have to be, to justify the expenditure of such a long voyage and such a large ship, at least one of extended duration.
Has anyone calculated how long it will take for the ship to be filled up?
Dr. Carter asked.
Assuming that each of those little cargo buckets rising up to the ship is full.
Not to my knowledge, Kaisa.
Dr. Stronton replied, obviously thinking it over.
It doesn't matter,
Dr. Becker stated.
The aliens could have more ships on the way to accept more minerals after this ship is full.
What information do we have about this ship?
Asked Dr. Carter. Dr. Stronton brought up pictures of the alien ship on the large screen at the end of the conference room.
The ship is composed of separate sections. Each is basically a large cylinder. The cylinder at the front of the ship is different from the others in that it has antennae and dishes attached to it. It also has several round protuberances at various places. We believe this to be the command module with all flight controls and data acquisition instrumentation. The other cylinders are thought to be cargo holds. If aliens are on board, then this is where they would be. If not, then this is most likely to be the area where the ship's onboard computers are located. This will be where you will attempt entry.
And after we enter? Assuming we can get in, what then? I asked.
Then your job begins.
Dr. Stronton smiled. We'll need to show that we are not hostile, perhaps by offering a gift. What are the aliens mining? What are they after on the moon? Do we have any ideas? I asked.
Our best guess is that they are mining rare materials, gold, platinum, palladium. These are rare on any planet, and it is thought that the moon could be rich in these. A highly advanced civilization would need these in many technologically advanced devices.
Dr. Stronton said.
The unique origin of the moon may have made it rich in these heavy metals,
Dr. Amori said. He had been introduced as a leading geologist with a special interest in the moon and planetary geology.
The moon began when a large body, or asteroid, struck the Earth. The impact resulted in part of the material from both bodies splitting away and gradually cooling to form our moon. As it cooled, the strong gravitational attraction of Earth may have caused these heavy metals to settle close to the surface of the moon that always faces the Earth. The large impact craters that formed the dark regions on the moon were so destructive to the moon's crust that they actually filled with molten lava. That is why they look dark and smooth. It also means that the heavy metals could have been brought even closer to the surface by these lava flows. The aliens have undoubtedly detected the minerals they are interested in and mapped out the richest and most easily accessible areas to mine.
Then perhaps we could take a few bars of platinum as a gift, I suggested.
Blankets and beads might be better,
Dr. Becker said with more than a little sarcasm.
You know what happened to the Native Americans when they showed the Spaniards they had gold? As bad as mining the moon is, we sure as hell don't want them mining the Earth, and we don't want to be the reason for an invasion.
Perhaps, a cultural gift, it might show them our value as a living species.
Dr. Carter suggested, ignoring Dr. Becker's comment.
We could give them recordings of music. Mozart would be appreciated by any species that could appreciate mathematics.
We could give them specimen of plants, both food and ornamental. One of the treasures of the New World was the potato. It's always a good idea to feed your guests.
Dr. Amori added.
A boom box loaded with Mozart and a dozen roses ringed with potatoes. Sounds irresistible.
Dr. Becker snorted.
People, we have no idea what these aliens value, or if they even have ears to hear music for that matter.
It's not the value of the gift, Dr. Becker. It is the gesture that is important. All societies throughout history have had laws of hospitality. It's a basic need between strangers to show their intentions are peaceful and not hostile. I felt myself getting hot under the collar and purposefully tried to calm my voice. Dr. Becker was more irritating than poison ivy in your underwear. We should present gifts to the aliens. We should also make every effort to show we are unarmed and carry nothing that could be misconstrued as a weapon.
I like the ideas of music and food as gifts. We can present these first, and if that is sufficient, then we will stop there. If it's not, then we can have a gift of platinum ready. It's often better not to show all your cards,
Dr. Stronton interjected.
You'll land on the cylinder adjacent to the first cylinder, the one that our probe landed on. The shuttle is being outfitted with a magnetic grapple to secure it to the alien ship's hull. It will approach from the rear of the ship and pull up alongside it. This is the same basic approach that the probe took. We believe there are fewer sensors to the rear of the alien vessel. From there, Sergeant Clanton will lead the four of you along the ship's outer skin to the command module. There we believe you will find an access hatch similar to the one found by the probe. After you enter the ship, we will probably lose communication with you. After that, you will be on your own, until you emerge again. Private Brunsick will cross over to the first cylinder and attempt to retrieve the probe that vanished inside it. We believe it may have recorded more information while exploring the inside of the cylinder, and that could be important.
Dr. Stronton continued.
Your oxygen supply will limit the amount of time you have, so make the most of it. You will have to return to the shuttle to replenish your oxygen supply.
A lot of our time will be wasted traveling back and forth to the front of the ship. Why not dock on the alien's command module? I asked.
This could be misconstrued as an aggressive action. After you have made contact, Commander Douglas can reposition the shuttle closer to your point of ingress and save you time,
Dr. Stronton said. I noticed Dr. Stronton looked very tired. He must have been up all night going over mission planning with other specialists. I began to wonder when he last slept and for how long. The mission could take a very long time, I said. How long can we stay?
The shuttle can be outfitted with enough supplies to support you for 3 months. You and your supplies are the only cargo,
he replied.
Dr. Hauptmann, Dr. Carter, Dr. Tanakai, and Dr. Becker, if you would follow the gentleman at the door, he will take you to another meeting room where you can begin preparing for the mission. You're going to get a crash course in being an astronaut. You will be joined by the 2 Marines who will be going with you shortly.
Dr. Stronton stood, ending the meeting for us. As we left, Dr. Stronton began going over other details with the remaining people in the meeting room. I wondered how this was going to turn out. A part of me was excited. What kid doesn't dream of being an astronaut, and what scientist hasn't wondered what it would be like to meet an alien race? But this felt Rushed and Haphazar. And why the Marina Guard to protect use? That didn't really make sense to me. What could they do? Or was that just a cover? What were their orders? Shit. I just hoped I survived this little expedition, and if it all went wrong, I hoped it was not because of my screw-up.